Hi, everyone. Welcome in. We're really excited to bring you this content today. If this is your first VMUG webcast, we appreciate you being here. My name's Erica. I'm on the VMUG communities team. Just have a few things. If this is your first event, VMUG is an independent global customer-led organization created to maximize members' use of VMware and partner solutions through knowledge sharing, training, collaboration, and events. I have a few housekeeping items. We encourage everyone to get connected to a local VMUG community near you at my.vmug.com. Please use the Q&A function for all questions to the panelists today. They'll be able to answer those live and at the end of the webcast. And then this session is being recorded and it will be distributed in a wrap-up email following the webcast and available on demand at my.vmug.com. You can find all future VMUG webcasts here on the left and also at my.vmug.com. And then we'll be in person at a few things coming up, including some today. So we'll be at Explore on Tour locations there on the left. We still have, so many coming up. And then as well as some UserCon sites. I'm here actually hosting from Boston today. And then make sure to sign up for our virtual event on November 6th. We're excited to bring you content from Explore and so much more. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Stephen at Devolutions, and we're excited to talk about the partnership we have for Advantage members, and we'll talk more about Advantage at the end for those who have questions.
Thank you, Erica. Welcome, everyone, to the Devolution studio here in Lavaltrie. We are about 30 minutes away from Montreal for those who want to see where we are. Thanks for spending the next hour with us. And I'm alongside Marc Beausejour. Hello, Marc.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going pretty well. It's good to be back in another webinar.
I'm breaking the ice. That's my first one. And I hope it's going to be good. And Marc, you're going to jump in the second part of the webinar. So we are here to talk about the starter pack NFR licenses and a complete tour of our product. So here we go. So Devolutions is a global software company that helps organizations bridge the gap between productivity and security through secure solutions for password management, remote connections, and privileged access management. Our products find a home in about 140 countries, and we just passed the 1 million user. That's quite the accomplishment, for us. So we a couple months ago we managed our products in 4 separate groups. The first one is the workforce password management. Second one, remote access management. Third one, remote connection management, and the last one, privileged access management. In a world where security has become a top priority, IT professionals often face a dilemma how to ensure data protection while maintaining optimal efficiency. So how to request an NFR license? So you just go to our website, www.devolutions.net, and you will find that page. I'm going to show them to you guys at the end of the webinar. So as you can see, we offer not for resale licenses to Microsoft MVP, VMUG Advantage, and so on. And this is our starter pack. Like I said earlier, we have 4 groups, so I'm not gonna talk about them again, but the starter pack is the all-in-one IT security toolbox for small teams. Starter packs gives you the, for small businesses, access to the advanced tool trusted by large RT teams, no feature restriction, no hidden upgrades, the full power of Devolution platform simplify for small teams. You guys got the full feature access from day one, the best price on the market, up to 5 users. So what's our groups? So the first one works for password management. So you can store, manage, and share credentials securely. You got unlimited credential storage, role-based access control, multi-factor authentication, so MFA, secure data sharing, and user activity logging and reporting. Remote access management enables safe remote access with built-in auditing. So you got lightweight and VPN alternative, just-in-time access, session recording through Gateway, remote file transfer, and MFA again. Remote connection management, so you can connect quickly to remote machines and environments. So you can support up to 50 plus remote connection protocols, granular access control system, integration with external password management, built-in network discovery tool, and native cross-platform clients for Windows, Mac, and Linux. And the last one, privilege access management. So you can protect sensitive system with granular access controls, privilege session management, automated password rotation and propagation, credentials checkout at approval workflow, just-in-time privilege evaluation, and comprehensive audit logging and reporting. So, Marc, let's do a complete tour of Remote Desktop Manager, our flagship product.
Yes, that's exactly right. Our flagship solution. And I'm going to have to time myself here because I could just take the whole hour just for Remote Desktop Manager. And that, of course, we won't have time to cover the other products here. But you said it just right. You know, Remote Desktop Manager, our flagship solution. If we move on to the other slide here. So what is Remote Desktop Manager? Well, it's exactly what you've described in the part about remote connection management. It basically covers any asset that you have to manage, connecting to these assets, but also having a single source of truth for these assets. And that's what Remote Desktop Manager does. And we'll see that in a few moments, things like RDP, SSH, VNC, and so on. Just as a brief here, there's over 100 technologies in Remote Desktop Manager. And the beauty of that is that we can put in credentials at the same time. So not only is it a single source of truth for your assets, but it's the same thing for credentials. We've got really a single pane of glass to cover everything within Remote Desktop Manager. And then on the next slide here, what we see is some of the greatest hits, some of the greatest one-liners for Remote Desktop Manager, all in one session management again. And then RDP, SSH, GNC, web apps. We've got integrations with Active Directory. Active Directory, well, it's all the rage, whether it's cloud or self-hosted, more so cloud now with Entra ID, as you can see. But there's still, of course, a need here for Windows Active Directory. We've got a use for Okta. And again, as my colleague said, password manager integration. So if you are LastPass users, 1Password, Dashlane, Keeper, and so many others, we'll see them. There's an integration in Remote Desktop Manager, and we'll see how that integration makes sense in RDM. The integrated credential vault, this is all about, you know, managing these secrets within Remote Desktop Manager and using them for injection against endpoints, websites, and whatnot. Audit and session logging. So being able to see everything that your people are doing within the context, of course, of the starter pack, so up to 5 users, very powerful for small teams. But there's, of course, the idea that you could expand if you want. If there's a need to expand also, Remote Desktop Manager grows with you, and we'll see all of the components that are attached to it. Session recording, that's another element that's very powerful in Remote Desktop Manager, and not many tools like ours can attest to being able to do that kind of thing. So this is sort of a, I would say, unique part of Remote Desktop Manager here. And then, of course, the last part, as my colleague said, cross-platform support. So it works. Of course, Windows we'll see today. Windows is the main platform. And as we know, market share, Windows, the Windows ecosystem is over 90% of individuals, organizations. So most people are on Windows, but there's, of course, a part for Mac OS, Linux, iOS, and Android. That goes without saying. And it even runs on ARM devices. So if you've got machines that use ARM processors, you'll be able to run Remote Desktop Manager on it as well. So all platforms, all form factors are supported here. Now, switching over to my screen here, you will see this is the main interface of Remote Desktop Manager. Again, structured around the idea that we give you easy access to your assets and your secrets. So here on the left-hand side, if some of you have perhaps used other products, and I'm going to give names here because it's going to make sense as well as we go along. If you've used RDC Manager, maybe you're using it right now. If you're using or have used Remote and mRemote NG, Mobile Extern, Rocket Remote Desktop, formerly Vision App, formerly ASG Remote Desktop. If you've used RD Tabs, if you've used so many other products, even for some people using PuTTY, or even just the plain MSTSC executable that's available on Windows. RDM is basically the culmination all-in-one alternative and evolution, or I could even say revolution, of all of these products. So instead of having multiple tools to do, in essence, the same thing, but with different protocols, you got only one tool, again, one single source of truth, one single pane of glass to rule everything, to use everything, and you'll have the flexibility of just having pretty much anything you can think of. There are no limits with Remote Desktop Manager. No limits on entries, no limits on the number of assets you can create, store. There's no limits on the number of connections you can open at once. The idea of Remote Desktop Manager is that you get an all-in-one flagship interface that covers everything. So if we look at it here today, starting with just RDP. RDP is what? It's even greater than the Windows ecosystem in terms of share here. Pretty much all connections start with RDP. So just opening a simple connection here opens embedded in an embedded tab within Remote Desktop Manager. It's fast, it's quick, it's easy, one-click action. It does it really well in Remote Desktop Manager. We've got pretty much all the tools you can think of. And what accompanies Remote Desktop Manager here is its ability to do scripting. I mentioned also session recording. You'll be able to do that for RDP, and we'll see that also for SSH. Even web browsing connections can be recorded in Remote Desktop Manager. So a lot of powerful stuff here along the way with Remote Desktop Manager. And then I mentioned quickly the use of scripting. So auto IT, auto it. You've got PS exec. You've got, of course, PowerShell. It goes without saying. Our tool wouldn't be about scripting if it didn't include PowerShell. So whatever you need with PowerShell, or if it's Windows terminal, there's a lot in Remote Desktop Manager that you can achieve with that here. So now moving on, for those that may be using PuTTY or are familiar with PuTTY, there's even one instance where you can just connect using SSH. So having access to any kind of Linux boxes in Remote Desktop Manager, that's the nice thing about it. And then, of course, you see here, just to show you, we can actually record SSH sessions. So not just logging, but recording visually what happens inside that Linux box. So here, very simple. I have different options available to SSH. It's quite extensive. I won't go through all of them because now it's going to take an hour. But it's pretty much anything you used with PuTTY. It's there with our own SSH tool here. And as you can see, I can have customization. I can have 2 sessions at once in my interface. I can work on 2 workspaces all at once in Remote Desktop Manager. We've got broadcasting of commands across SSH sessions. We've got on-demand script that you can just click on it and then it executes it inside the session itself. The same is true for RDP. It's just so extensive, really, that at the end of the day, you take the most painful points you have for granted. It just works. It just works. You stop working on manual processes and you automate everything with Remote Desktop Manager. There's no longer no longer a hanging fruit here that's painful to work with. RDM just makes your life easier. It reignites passion for what we do in controlling the IT chaos. That's another one of our mottos here, controlling the IT chaos. That's the best way to describe here our suite of products. So that's for some of the main stuff for Remote Desktop Manager. If we look at it again quickly here in the list of new entries that we have, because I mentioned RDP SSH, but again, it does so much more. VNC websites, cloud explorers, file explorers. We've got SFTP, we've got FTP, SCP, TFTP as well, SMB. So we have a footprint in the bleeding edge of innovation of technology, but of course we also have a foot behind for anything that's legacy. Intermodal Desktop Manager. So anything that could be IBM stuff, even. Maybe you manage some IBM resources. So there's a part in RDM where you can have access to IBM iAccess personal communications, or even the famous 5250 terminal, TN3270 as well. Maybe you use that. Again, RDM is designed to cover any use cases you can think of. Whatever you throw at it, it probably covers it. You know, the joke I like to say is we're just one update away from controlling your Keurig machine, your coffee machine. We'll do coffee for you with PowerShell. You know, with Internet of Things now we can do pretty much anything. So it really is about making your life easier, driving productivity and efficiency to the max here, just on overdrive. That's what Remote Desktop Manager does. And so again, here, last part, credential management. We do the external password managers. We have built-in credential management as well. We can do certificates, X509. So if we want to be passwordless, we want to be future-proof here, we want to drive innovation and perhaps a more secure way of authenticating to systems, you can store your certificates in RDM. But of course, if you already have a solution, you're 1Password users, you are using Dashlane, or Hoodoo maybe, or LastPass or whatnot, there is also an integration, and that basically what it does is that it allows you to just fetch in your credentials from these products and then pass them along to sessions for easy authentication within a Remote Desktop Manager. So we remove the friction, we reduce as much as possible the friction here between an external vault of secrets that could be, again, any product you use that we integrate here, and the fact that Remote Desktop Manager is a connection manager and asset manager. So that's blending here the best of both worlds if there is a need for a third-party password manager integration. So yeah, very extensive. Perhaps last few items here, because again, RDM is so extensive and I don't want to lose myself in this because I'm easy to lose here.
You're so passionate.
Yes, too passionate perhaps. So activity logs, of course, from a concept of individuals working together in a team, or even in some instances, perhaps independent users, even if it's not necessarily a team. There is a way still to have logs, create, read, update, delete actions will generate a log entry here. You'll be able to generate reports of these. So you see what your people are doing, but you could also see yourself as an individual, what you're doing. So maybe you are a contractor or a consultant doing work for a customer, and then you charge per hour, and then you have to validate the work you've done or just show the work you've done. The logs, the reports can help you for that. So there's a lot of use cases in a Remote Desktop Manager that are covered with these functions. And so whether, again, you're independent, you're a solo user, or you are working in a team, there is something for you with Remote Desktop Manager here. And again, with the ability to script connections, you're basically reducing steps to just one-click action. There's no longer any manual processes. I can't stress that enough, how easy it is to automate things around in a Remote Desktop Manager and just keep things really powerful and really neat within the application. Do we have any questions so far?
Yeah,
Anything?
I think I saw a couple.
A few questions? No, I can see them from here. Which version of AD or AAD required? Very good question. We'll start with that here. A few, I would say 1 or 2 years ago, we still had support for 2008. Microsoft has ended 2008 support. And even, I believe it was last year, they ended support for 2012. So technically, it would still work to use within a Remote Desktop Manager. Highly not recommended. The minimum for Windows Active Directory would be Server 2016 for a domain controller. For Azure Active Directory, or Entra ID as it's called now, well, this is cloud-based. So pretty much what you already have right now, or what you've experienced with other vendors, if you've integrated AAD with other vendors, it just works. So there's no specific version required for this. Does RDM require any agent to be deployed? No, it doesn't. And in fact, we have a service called a custom installer service that can help you deploy remote desktop manager with predefined configuration. So it becomes sort of a turnkey solution. So you don't have to configure anything. Your people will just log in into the product and they'll be ready to start working. You configured things around, permissions are applied, entries are there. They just work with what you've provided to them, and then it's frictionless at the end of the day. Talking about the backend server for on-premise, what is the OS and form factor we would need? Is it just a VM with everything included? That's a good question. And that is something of importance that I, in fact, was going to cover in the next slide here, but we'll cover it right now. RDM is a desktop application or mobile application as well, if we consider iOS and Android, but there is a database backend behind it, as you said, which is important. So this backend can either be cloud or self-hosted. If we talk about self-hosted, again, the domain controller, if we talk about Active Directory, if we're going to use that for authentication, 2016 required. It could be physical, it could be virtualized, it could be in your own private cloud. So if some of you have Google Cloud, AWS, or Azure as your cloud provider, you could run a VM in there by installing the self-hosted server solution that will power Remote Desktop Manager. We call it Devolutions Server. We'll see that in a few moments, but this is what will be the database behind Remote Desktop Manager that's powering the entries, the users, the groups, the permissions, the logs, and whatnot. You need a team database behind it in order to have a team solution. So that's for self-hosted. Then we have the cloud equivalent that we call Devolutions Hub. This is the best way I could describe it, this is a pay and forget. So if you decide to go with something cloud, you don't want to manage an infrastructure, you'd go with Devolutions Hub, and it would display entries in Remote Desktop Manager the same way a self-hosted would, but it's no hands-on with a cloud solution. If that answers the question, please let me know if you need some clarification on this. Is this software available for in-house use to try it out? Absolutely. Absolutely. And in fact, with the VMUG Advantage program, you'll be able to have access to the starter pack, and the starter pack gives you access to everything. So if you want to install this wherever you want to install it, you could even have it portable for a Remote Desktop Manager. You could run it on a USB key if you wanted and just use it anywhere you go. So yeah, absolutely. You can install it there, and there's no need for special configurations. It's absolutely available for that type of scenario. Which Windows and Linux versions supported? Windows 10 minimum. Windows 10 is approaching end of support, but Microsoft is extending it another year for security. So I would say, yeah, Windows 10 would be the bare minimum. Probably the latest version, however, the latest build available. So not the previous version, certainly not the RTM build that was released back in 2015, but really the latest available build version for Windows 10. And then after that, any version of Windows 11 works fine for the Windows part. Linux, I think it's Ubuntu 20, I think. If I remember correctly, it's not the latest and greatest version of Ubuntu, but it's started at version 20 for that. And I think we saw in other questions, if we could scroll up, I think it was for PuTTY. Yeah, for PuTTY, do you have the ability to capture the text? Yes, there's text capturing with logging, so you'll be fine there. Can we push logins? I'm assuming 80 passwords in both, like IP ranges for Windows and Linux. Yes, through scripting or even through dedicated tools for that, or even storage as well as possible. You can store it there in Remote Desktop Manager for that purpose. Is Bitwarden Password Manager supported? Yes. As part of the list of integrations, it is absolutely supported. Did we cover all questions? Perfect. All right, so That's it for RDM. If you've got more questions along the way, if there's ever something that comes up, because I'm like that, there's always a question that comes up after the fact. So please don't hesitate to ask any questions. There are no silly questions. This is very important. We're here to answer anything you might have on top of your mind here. This is what we do best. It's answering questions and helping you at the end of the day. So if we go back to our slides here, we'll move on to the next suite here, which is the Devolutions PAM, Privileged Access Management. I'm sure most of you have already heard about this. Some of you may already be in this. Some of you may be starting to explore it, or some of you have never heard about the PAM. So what is PAM? Privileged Access Management. Today, we'll be presenting our own vision of privileged access management, but let's give a little bit of background. What is privileged access management? It's anything that deals with highly sensitive, high privileged accounts. So basically, you've got domain accounts, domain service accounts that deal with highly sensitive components of your infrastructure or gets access to systems that contain sensitive data. And these accounts need to be secured. They need to be controlled. And we're just talking here about Windows Active Directory, but then we can go into Entra ID. We could talk about SQL accounts, local Windows accounts. We could talk about Linux box accounts as well, and so on. We'll see a little bit of that here with our suite, with the Devolutions PAM suite. But it really focuses on securing highly sensitive secrets. That's the best way to describe PAM here. And with Devolutions, what we really focused on is PAM 101. What is critical to small to medium businesses, and even to some extent, larger enterprises. With us, and then if we move to the next slide here, what we focused around here is, of course, privileged account vaulting. So coming back again to the idea of isolating and securing privileged accounts in control vaults, we'll see that. That's where Devolution Server will come in. That's where Devolutions Hub will come in, and we'll make the differentiation between both. Just-in-time privilege elevation. So that's the concept of elevating the rights of a given privileged account for a given time. So what we call here ZSP, zero standing privilege concept. So that means that you no longer have high privileged accounts. You just have a low privileged account, in the concept here of managing secrets. Credential checkout and approval, that's part of the concept of PAM. So I'm requiring access to sensitive privileged accounts, or I want access to systems that will use these privileged accounts. So there's a concept of approval in it, and we'll see how easy it is to use within our ecosystem. Privilege session monitoring, very powerful. We can do recordings, as we saw earlier with Remote Desktop Manager, but we can push this a notch further here with the Devolutions PAM. What we can do is see in real time connections that are running. So your people have open sessions. You want to sort of do maybe surveillance, maybe that's needed because as part of your requirements or the policies you have within your organization, you need that. You'll be able to do so with the privilege session monitoring feature. We'll see that as well within our product. And then the native integration with Remote Desktop Manager. This is what really makes all the difference here when it comes to privilege access management, because what we hear and what we see is that PAM is certainly very nice. It gives you the security, but the problem is it breaks all productivity and efficiency because of all the workflows and all of the change control requests and whatnot that needs to be adopted in the process here. So we make that easier within our ecosystem. And I will even add another point here. Maybe some of you already have PAM solutions. So if I say Delinea, CyberArk, or Beyond Trust, or even One Identity, maybe these ring a bell for some of you. Maybe you're already using these solutions. Well, rejoice, because going back to Remote Desktop Manager, we've got integrations for all of these products. So maybe you can't choose another solution, another PAM solution like ours. There is still an integration for your PAM your chosen PAM vendor in a multi-step manager to, again, the idea, bring back productivity and efficiency at the end of the day. So now if we switch back to my screen here, I'm going to change view from remote desktop manager and then move on to our PAM ecosystem. So this is access through the web. So with Devolution Server, starting with Devolution Server here, as mentioned briefly earlier, this is our web application. It's a web application that will power the Devolutions PAM functions. So again, we saw earlier just-in-time, privileged account vaulting, credential checkout and whatnot, privileged session monitoring, and then of course we'll see that all of that in action in a multi-step manager because RDM is the differentiator here. But in terms of privileged access, what can we do when it comes to privileged accounts? So we've got a dedicated section within our solution really designed just for privileged access management. So here, this is where we control our privileged accounts. If we go here and add a new account, these are all the types that we can manage. So you could have an AWS AIM user access key. It could be just an AIM user password. It could be Entra ID, Azure AD accounts. It could be, of course, domain accounts. That's probably the most that's used here. Local user SSH, we've made it universal because you can go in pretty much any flavor of Linux that exists out there for PAM policies. And then you've got SQL Server accounts and then Windows local Windows accounts that can be controlled here. We have a list that's just password reset only, so we can extend that to MySQL accounts. If some of you are using MySQL, you want to do rotation there, you can. Cisco user accounts as well, so we can think of network switches, anything that's headless, that's terminal-based. For Cisco, we can do it there. And then Oracle user accounts as well can be controlled here. One of the other powerful functions that are offered here, this is the category here that we used to call any identity, but the best way to describe that this is a custom provider list. So what the custom provider does is that you can basically go anywhere. So you've got VMware accounts you want to rotate. You have, I don't know, maybe SAP accounts that you want to rotate. If some of you use SAP, as an ERP system, you've got different ERP systems that use these accounts. We can program it using a custom provider. So we can do rotation for these accounts and have them under our ecosystem for easy access to systems and having a policy engine that makes all of these sensitive accounts more secure within the ecosystem here. So when it comes to the functions themselves, we talked a lot about the accounts here and what can be done. But of course, password rotation, that's one of the most important functions. You can reset passwords here. As you can see within the interface, we can set a schedule for rotation, very important. So I can say, well, after X number of time, I want to change that password at every day, hour, minute. I can do this from here within our solution. We can set a propagation as well. Let's say I'm resetting the password for a domain service account. Maybe that service account is being used on local endpoints. So when we rotate the password, it only rotates it at the source. So the propagation makes sure that wherever this account is being used as dependency, it will rotate it there as well for ease of use, but also ease of access. So you don't have to do it manually. It's all about automating things and you basically applying these policies for your own needs easily from this interface. And then the last part here is the elevation concept. So just-in-time elevation is what makes perhaps this even more powerful, because now we can actually control the status of that account. And again, going back to the zero standing privilege, this is a best practice. We can say to you, no longer do you need high privileged accounts In the wild here, you just say, well, going forward, all of my accounts are low privileged. And with a solution like the one from Devolutions, I will elevate the rights for this account and give them higher rights on a given time. So let's say I need to be a domain admin for 15 minutes. Well, in our process of using these privileged accounts and connecting to these systems, we can request higher rights and then have administrators that can approve or deny or modify these requests on a need-to basis. So there's a lot of power involved here. There's the security, of course, goes without saying, but we want to make this as easy as possible in a way that makes sense and that's fast as well. So how do we translate everything that we've seen today into a real-world use case? Well, we'll jump back into Remote Desktop Manager and see again what this looks like. So in the concept of Remote Desktop Manager, we have what we call here vaults. And in these different vaults, I can have different entries, different access within. And now we have one dedicated for privilege access. This is where we will see the privilege access management workflow within Remote Desktop Manager. So here under North America, the Montreal folder, this RDP session is one example where if I click on open session, I get this request afterwards. So here, this is where the magic and the ease of access happens. I can basically request everything that I need to do, the work that I need to do directly in one single frame. Afterwards, the idea is that you'll have an administrator behind it that is authorized to approve or deny these requests that make it, again, faster to get access to these sensitive systems. So here, first of all, I'm sending a request to Bob Anderson. Bob Anderson is our administrator persona, approves or denies, can approve or deny checkout requests like this one. Requesting 15 minutes for access. I can set a custom time frame if I want. Then I get the option to elevate the account that I'm going to use to access the system if needed. DNS, domain admin, enterprise admin. We can make this request from there and specifying a ticket number. Something very powerful here because we can integrate with ticketing systems like ServiceNow or Jira. We'll have other ticketing systems in the future. I know we've recently received a request for Freshdesk. If some of you are using Freshdesk, perhaps in the future, there will be an integration here. But what this does is that we can actually link to a ticketing service and have logging done directly within a Remote Desktop Manager. So traceability will be done by having ticket numbers attached here. We can make a ticket number required so people can't pass that dialogue or can't set a request without actually putting information that's necessary for proper approval. And then, of course, for comment, well, I could say need access for updates. So once I have this filled out, once I have everything I need, I send over the request, and then this person can receive a request either via email or push notification on their mobile device, iOS, Android, approve or deny these requests, modify the requests from there directly from within the interface. For this presentation, there's something else that we will showcase as well. For administrators or for pre-authorized users, this request can be skipped. So we already have the workflows already pre-programmed. We already have an advanced knowledge that these actions need to be done. To make this even more frictionless than what we already have, we could say I can already have this checkout request pre-approved, automatically approved. I'll just have the logs to know that this action was done. So we can give that to some authorized users. So basically, I click on request checkout. I can have recording enabled at the same time. Maybe you're not fully seeing it here, but there's a little red dot on the tab here that says that my session is being recorded, and then the session is running within that connection here. Something must have happened in the process. That's always happens to me when I'm doing these presentations. The demo gods are cruel. But as you see, it just launches, credentials are passed over. And when the session ends, we can do an automatic password reset on the privileged account that was used to connect to that system. So you don't have to do it yourself. We do it for you. Mechanisms take care of that. And then it just works That's really, again, the word to use here. It just works, it's easy, and it goes along smoothly in a multi-step manager. Going back here in Devolution Server, again, Devolution Server is the self-hosted offering for a privilege access management or access to privilege access management features. We have a cloud equivalent, Devolutions Up. It's pretty much the same look and feel, same interface, but on a cloud scenario. So if you don't want to have to handle something internally, you don't want to have to install it yourself, you can just use the cloud portion of it. You can just use Devolutions Hub, and it's the best way to describe it. Again, it's pay and forget. It'll do exactly the same thing as you saw today, but from a no management, no hands-on approach with a privilege access management. Do we have any questions? How is it licensed? It's licensed per named user. But luckily for you, with the starter pack and your VMUG Advantage, you'll get this package for up to 5 users completely free. But if you want to expand beyond that, our sales team could certainly guide you. You'll have access to different packages depending on your needs. Again, if we reiterate the different packages that we saw in the beginning, workforce password management, if you just need to manage passwords, remote access management, if we want to add something that we will see in a few moments as well, when it comes to connecting securely to external endpoints, remote connection management, which basically involves primarily remote desktop manager, and then the last package, which is privilege access management, which covers what we saw today for PAM, and then external PAM vendors as well, if we want to integrate those. How about Delinea? Yes, Delinea integrated as well in a multi-step manager. And the idea of Delinea and all the other third-party PAM vendors that we integrate with is that we facilitate the use of secrets in these PAM solutions and use them against sessions with all of the workflows that you would expect within them and added into remote desktop manager. There is basically no difference with the third-party password manager that I was referring to earlier. It's the same concept, but PAM vendors have more workflows involved, so you'll get the benefit of that in a multi-step manager. And the same is true again for, the question was about Delinea, you'll get that concept as well within the solution. Do we require any integration with a vCenter or VCF? No, but we do have an integration with a vCenter in a multi-step manager. I didn't even show you that. Again, there's so much to talk about, and time is flying so fast here, and I'm going to have to sting myself because I talk too much. But there is an integration with VMware in a multi-step manager, so you could just launch connections to VMware, vSphere, vCenter. We even have VMware Horizon, although that changed hands. It's now called Onisa Horizon. So if you use that, there's an integration for that in a multi-step manager for you to use. What is required for modify or add workflows? That's basically permission-based. So there is what my colleague said earlier, the role-based access control mechanism. I didn't even talk about that as well. That's another element, part of the workflow here. You'll be able to control granularly what your people are doing. So modify or adding stuff, you'll be able to control that through our fine-grained access control mechanism workflow. And you can tie this into Active Directory security groups. So you won't even have to create new groups or new users. You can just import what you have in Windows Active Directory. If you need or use Windows Active Directory, you'll be able to do the same thing with Entra ID, use Entra ID users, use Entra ID groups for permissions. And the same is true for Okta as well, Okta users and Okta groups. If we want to integrate with Delinea, is there a specific product we should request a quote pricing for, or is that included with RDM licensing? Yeah. So to get access to Delinea, it'll be Remote Desktop Manager, and that will be the PAM package. If it's not, if you need a certain number of users that go beyond the starter pack. So you would like to move forward with this, but there's more than 5 users. You'd be looking at the PAM package. That's what you'd request from our sales team. And then depending on the number of users, you'll get a price based on this for our privileged access management package. Is password state as an external password manager supported? Yes. It's it works like all the others. Password state is just one amongst all the other password managers that we have. We covered everything? Excellent. So moving on here to our next slide, Devolutions Launcher. This is where it becomes interesting. We've seen Remote Desktop Manager. We've seen Devolutions Server. We've talked about Devolutions Hub. Remote Desktop Manager launches connections. Now, what is Devolutions Launcher? This is a tool that is designed to give you the ability to launch connections, but on a smaller scale than Remote Desktop Manager. And what I mean by this is that instead of having a full-fledged client like Remote Desktop Manager that's installed on your device and that is extensive in terms of feature offering, maybe you will say that for my use case, I have 10% of connection launching, and then the rest, the other 90% is basically secret management. So we still want to give you that 10%. And that 10% is basically covered by the Devolutions Launcher. And the Devolutions Launcher is a lightweight app that you would install on your device. It's Windows only, but that's for a different experience, I would say, with the launcher tool, because with Devolutions Server or even with Devolutions Hub, we have the ability to launch connections on the web. So you can have an HTML5 web client that opens RDP, opens SSH, Telnet, VNC, Apple Remote Desktop, something that's basically a first around the world. There's nobody else that does that. Launching the Apple Remote Desktop protocol in a web browser tab, nobody does that. So that's something very unique with us. It's part of what we do here in innovation at Devolution. So if you need Apple Remote Desktop, you can even launch it on the web here. And then also PowerShell WinRM. You can launch that in the web here. And we'll see that in a few moments. If we move on to the next slide here, this is basically what you get in terms of features. Again, very similar to RDM, but on a smaller scale, one-click launch and credential injection, tab multitasking, multi-protocol support. Of course, user-friendly. There's no password management required, so you do all that from a web interface perspective. Fast and lightweight deployment, that's the idea here, is that you get a client-less experience or a very small client experience compared to Remote Desktop Manager. That's really for use cases where Remote Desktop Manager just is too much. So now if we move on back to my screen here, I'm going to go back in Devolutions Server and now show you how easy it is to launch connections, but from a web interface. Again, with the launcher tool, I can launch these connections within Remote Desktop, the launcher application rather, and it just works. So here I select an RDP session in my tree view list, very similar to the data in RDM. It's actually the same data, but from a web browser perspective, a web application perspective. So I have this different use case here that would involve users that don't necessarily need RDM. And then from here, I can just open that session in the browser or open that session in Devolutions Launcher. Launcher, again, the experience is similar to RDM. So I'm not going to show you that specifically, but I want to show you the web experience because this is very powerful. So here I have an SSH, a Linux box that I can launch again from the web here, open in web browser, opens tab, and as you see, I have SSH in the browser. Very powerful. And I can do almost pretty much the same as what you can do in Remote Desktop Manager, which is launching connections in the web interface, SSH, again, as you see, one of them. But if I go back to my vault here, I can then launch an RDP connection if I want Windjammer 46. That's another example. I have SSH and RDP in the web browser here. And I can even record the session again, and I can see that in real time in the interface if need be. Do we have any questions? Yeah, maybe I missed it, but the starter package 5 users available at no charge to VMUG. Yes, absolutely. This is the great advantage you get here today in this announcement, in this webinar that we're making, is that you get access to the starter pack through your VMUG Advantage program, no cost, and up to 5 users. So you get a powerful function with all the features we have to offer for up to 5 users. No more questions? All right. So now, because time is flying fast here, I only have 10 minutes left. There's so much to talk about. It's crazy, but it's all good. It's all good. There's so much to cover. And at the end here, we're gonna have a little surprise for you all. But now, Devolutions Gateway. This is our technology. If we can bring back the here, Devolutions Gateway. This is our remote access tool that gives you a way to access systems externally. So traditional VPNs or remote desktop gateway, this is old stuff. It's very old technology. It doesn't work as much as it could today because of the new landscape, the new nature of things. We want something that's far more powerful, far more secure, and has an ecosystem to back it behind it. So our Devolutions Gateway is our foray into the field of remote access management, and best way described as well, what we call software-defined perimeter. This is what Gateway offers, sort of like imagine you have multiple devices in a VLAN, and this VLAN is secure, and the only way to access it is our product. So how do I force RDP? How do I force SSH to be only accessed by one route? This is what the Gateway will offer you with our ecosystem, Remote Desktop Manager, and the rest of the other products that we have. The Gateway comes in and forces connections to go through it. Nothing else can access it, and only our products can access it, Remote Desktop Manager or Launcher. So now if we see here, it's built with Rust. Rust is the development language that we use. So it's very secure. It's very, it's the most advanced language. And in fact, it's the initiative from the US federal government to encourage developers to use languages other than C or C++. So we use Rust now for that technology. So we're bleeding edge on this. And it's open source development. So if you want to see what it's involved, what is the product itself, what security is involved, you have access to all of this. You can see it on our GitHub repository. You can see the code, so you see what we're actually doing with it. So you have full transparency there as to what are the core components, what is the product made of, and it's in full transparency. And now if we move to the other slide here, just a summary of functions. It's just-in-time remote access, no VPN needed. Credential injection with Remote Desktop Manager, we'll see that in RDM. Connection logging and control, tracking session. You can view your currently running sessions. You can terminate these sessions if needed. So if that session is running and it is, for whatever reason, you need to terminate that session, you'll be able to do so. Granular access rules as well. You can restrict by user, by IP, or by time. So we give a given time to access systems to our gateway. After that time, we close the session. And then browser-based access. We saw this a few moments ago. It's also powered by our Devolutions Gateway technology. So we can secure it through the gateway and have recording all at once. So now if we go back in on my screen here, in Remote Desktop Manager, because RDM is, again, it's the flagship solution. It always comes back to that within our ecosystem. It's really the best for productivity. If we look at the sessions themselves that will then go through our gateway, it goes so fast that I can't actually show you what is happening. So if I take back connections that I open on the web, it works also in Remote Desktop Manager. When I click on Open Session here, it's as if there was nothing in front of it. It's as if there was no VPN, but it is actually going through our gateway. And you might not be seeing this, it may be small on your screen here, but there's a little owl behind my red dot here that basically says this connection is going through Devolutions Gateway. And in the tooltip, we can actually see it here. It says connected with Devolutions Gateway. So we know that this connection is going through our gateway and it is secured by our gateway technology. Any questions so far? If I use it for remote access without a dedicated VPN, what would be the backend I am connecting to? It's you're connecting to a VLAN or an external network. So it's again, it's like a VPN, but it doesn't have the constraints of a VPN. So the gateway will be configured on that in that VLAN or on that external network, and then through Remote Desktop Manager, through configurations, when you open connections, it will go through that Devolutions Gateway to then access the systems on that VLAN. It's a way, again, for you to secure access to these endpoints that exist in external networks, but also have other policies attached, as we saw earlier in the PowerPoint. This is what allows you to secure connections more than just the protocols themselves, because RDP has traditional, not traditional, but well-known vulnerabilities that unfortunately are not fixed by Microsoft. There are tools to alleviate that, but we can push that notch further by having a solution like Devolutions Gateway that will secure it. And it's true for other protocols, SSH, or anything that we support through our Devolutions Gateway technology. No, there shouldn't be any problem. The nice thing about no problem with split tunneling while using VPN. No, there shouldn't be any problem, because the gateway technology it's not connecting like traditional VPN. We're only pushing through the connection only the necessary traffic. So if you're just going to connect to RDP through the gateway, we're just going to pass RDP through the channel. It's a TCP channel encrypted using TLS. But that's how it makes it different from VPN. It's that we're not using your entire network connection on your device. I think more about, in the past, I had a VM running Guacamole server. Now it's a VM running Devolutions Gateway. That's correct. Yeah, that's it. That's right. So instead of Guacamole, Devolutions Gateway is the alternative to Guacamole. In fact, that is a great example, and I wasn't thinking about this. Thank you for that question. Yes, it's an alternative to Guacamole. If some of you, like yourself, Wolfgang, you know Guacamole, well, Devolutions Gateway is a far more powerful alternative to Guacamole, because the criticism that we have is that Guacamole is secure, but the performance is terrible. We have security, but we have performance at the same time. Time is flying. Okay. The last one, if we can go back to my screen here, Devolutions Workspace. This is our application for exploring your passwords. So for the workforce password management side of things, we offer an app to view your passwords, use your passwords, inject your passwords, either on mobile or through a browser extension. That's what Devolutions Workspace does. We can do all of that with this application. We can view our passwords. We have an offline mode, so if you're disconnected from your source of data, you'll be able to still have access to your password. So this is a way of offering a tool for individuals that would need to manage passwords, a bit like what LastPass, 1Password, or KeePass does. This app is designed for that. Amongst other things, we can use it also for a portion of the privilege access management that I referred to earlier. So for the approval mechanism, the notifications you receive on your mobile device, it passes through Workspace. Now, if we change here to the other slide, so here we have, again, all-in-one access. We can do MFA through it. It's cross-platform. It works on desktop, mobile, and web. offline access, use credentials and sessions without internet. It works there. Passwords, autofill again, and then built-in approvals and messaging. That's what it does here with Workspace. So browser extension, quickly, if we can just go back to my screen, I'll show this because this is probably the most powerful thing, is that having a browser extension to easily log into websites, that's what it does best. So if we can show back my screen here, when you're inside the browser extension, when I click on the browser extension, I can just easily authenticate myself here, and then we get access to the extension itself, and then we can see from here all the accounts that I have access to, and then just use them for authentication here. So I'm just going to show you one very easy entry here. It's the intranet login that we have. We can just send over our credentials to that website. This is just an internal website we have, but it's just to show you the injection that we can do. If you have multiple accounts for the same site, we will display them for you here, and then you can just choose that, and it automatically injects it, and then you can click on login. It can also automatically log you in on the website. So that's it. Took it a lot of time here, thank God. It's so much to talk about, but this is all great. This is our ecosystem. It's the power of the Devolutions ecosystem. We cover everything you can think of. So yeah, I'll let my colleague Stephen finish here with our last slide.
Yeah, thanks, Marc. If you want more information about our NFR licenses, you can go to the Devolution blog. So the first QR code, if you can scan it, you will see our blog article. So if you want to learn more. And you can also chat with support at service@devolutions.net. And second QR code, it's our website page. So devolution.net offer NFR. You're going to jump right into our NFR license. So you can go there. And also we have forum, so forum.devolutions.net, and you can contact sales if you want even more information at sales@devolutions.net.
Excellent. Perhaps one last thing here. The last surprise, as I was referring to, next week, next Wednesday, September 24th, we're going to have a webinar for our free edition of Remote Desktop Manager. So even though today you have we've talked about our NFR for the starter pack, there's still going to be value to see Remote Desktop Manager, even the free edition, because we're going to see a lot of new things that you haven't seen today. So if you want to participate next week, this is a free event webinar that we'll be hosting. If you can put Nicholas in the chat if it's already done, don't hesitate to subscribe. You'll be able to participate there. And then the week after, I believe it's on September 30th for the RDM, another event about Remote Desktop Manager, but this one will focus on AI. So we're doing some very exciting stuff when it comes to AI in Remote Desktop Manager, and even with our ecosystem of products. So if you want to learn more, participate in that event. I think we've also put in the chat a link to that. So if you want to participate there and see what we're going to do with AI at Devolutions, you don't want to miss this. And that's it.
Yes, that's it.
Quite a...
I
okay, 3
can
minutes
listen
over.
to you for 4 hours.
Yes. There was so much to show, and
yeah,
it's crazy. But again, the ecosystem is there to help drive passion, first of all, to remove friction, and then to drive up productivity and efficiency. We'll never say that enough. That's what we do. Reducing the amount of time, the number of clicks, and then it's just making you better at what you do best.
Thank you both so much for your time. I'm gonna take us away with our last ending slides here. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. There we go. So thank you all for joining. The session was recorded and the recording will be distributed in a wrap-up email following this webcast. It will prompt you to take a survey after this, so please make sure to take that. That helps us bring fresh, relevant content, and who knows, maybe we'll have Devolutions back soon. It sounds like there's so much more that we could learn. And then we have a special 10% off discount code. If you're not a member of VMUG Advantage yet, you can use the code COMMUNITY. VMUG Advantage has helped so many of our members advance in their careers, utilize services like this, and we cannot recommend it more. Here's a little bit about the differences in our free general membership and our paid Advantage membership. It's normally $210 a year, but with that 10% off, it makes it just under $189. So we recommend that everyone upgrade to get that full starter pack with Devolutions. You get the vDefend firewall, Avi load balancer, so much more. And then there's your QR code to sign up for Advantage. We so appreciate you guys. Make sure to save those links if you want to register for Devolutions webcasts in the future. And I'm going to close this out. Thank you so much. And everyone have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thanks so much,
Thanks,
Erica.
guys.